You've just found the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Here, you'll discover the people and places that make Montana like no other place in the world. If you love to fish, hunt, or just enjoy creating your own adventure in the outdoors, you have come to the right place. The Montana Outdoor Podcast is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, home of Boss Snowplows and Accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and Accessories. Go to rmtte.com and see everything they have waiting for you online, or just come by 5680 Expressway in Missoula, and by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, delivering the highest quality lumber, paneling, flooring, and reclaimed wood products anywhere in North America. Let them guide you through the woods at their showroom in Missoula on Highway 93 South or at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, let's go discover Montana's great outdoors with your host, Downrigger Dale. Have a great show, buddy. Can't wait to hear it.
Thank you very much, Roger. And as Roger just said, I am Downrigger Dale of the Montana Outdoor Podcast and the Montana Outdoor Radio Show. And welcome to all of you here. So glad that you could join us. Before we get started, I want to say welcome to a few folks that we have had since the beginning of this podcast. And I always like to give them a special introduction because they're very important to all of us. And that is all of our enlisted folks, our folks, officers, and all kinds of people that in the military that are listening from all around the world. We have viewers from bases all over the world, and we just are honored that you're here. And thank you so much for your service to our country and what you do out there for all of us all around the world. And I hope this podcast brings a little bit of home to you. I know a lot of you out there are from Montana. We per capita, Montana has more enlisted folks than anywhere. So good to have you. Also want to welcome our veterans. Montana also is home to a lot of veterans. So thank you for your service as well. And thanks for being here. And welcome to all of you all around the great state of Montana and every single county we have viewers from, as well as all around the United States. Now we're viewers in every state in the United States and every province in Canada, as well as we have a lot of you that view us from overseas and that. So welcome here. So glad that we have you here. Now, my promotional people always want me to talk a little internet YouTube lingo, and that is please like, share, and comment and all that on YouTube as well as on Spotify. We are now on about 25 or 30 different sites around the world. So thank you for that, as well as, of course, on MontanaOutdoor.com, which is our website. And then that is also seen on Network Sports One, which is worldwide as well. So for you viewers out there on Network Sports, thank you for being part of the podcast as well. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been having some great information and giving a great preview for the upcoming ice fishing season. Still waiting on some of that hard water to hit in a few spots, but I am hearing that over on Fort Peck Reservoir, way over in eastern Montana, we're getting some hard water finally. And we do have some in a few spots in northwest Montana. Of course, be real careful. Be sure and do a lot of testing and all that stuff when you get out there. But anyway, we've been getting a lot of great information, but we're going to change subjects a little bit. I guess you could say our podcast is going to the dogs here as we talk a little bit about dog sledding. And I am excited for this because there's a company called Basecamp Bigfork that has a very unique experience for you. And I thought, for our regular viewers, I think you're really going to like this because it's something that you probably don't get a chance to do very often, and that's get on a dog sled. And in the case of Basecamp Bigfork, they even let you try out being a musher yourself. So that's kind of exciting. And with me today is Mark, and say your last name again for me again so I don't butcher it.
It's Mark Schurke.
Schurke, that's it. There we go. You told me before, and then it went right out of my head here. So Mark,
it's not the first start.
Mark Schurke is our guest. He is the owner of Basecamp Bigfork, and I guess the best place to start is why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Mark, and you have a really interesting background on how you got into this. Was it your uncle, I think, that got you into being a dog sledding and all that?
Yes, yeah. There's a great connection to my uncle, being that I grew up more of a suburban kid, moving around different cities throughout my life. And my uncle happened to live in the North Woods of Minnesota, where he got involved with dog sledding as a means of getting people with disabilities out on
Ah,
wilderness trips. And with that, he was friends with a fellow by the name of Will Steger. And back in 1986, Will Steger and my uncle actually dog sledded to the North Pole, and
really?
that was a cover story in National Geographic magazine. So I grew up with this neat family connection, certainly a bit removed from the North Woods of Minnesota, but still certainly something that was inspirational to me as a kid. Anytime we'd go to visit, I'd always enjoyed being around the dogs, but I never really thought I would be doing this for a career myself. And it wasn't until I was in college that I was studying parks, recreation, and tourism at Michigan State University. And I was able to do my internship working for my uncle in Ely, Minnesota. And his business is known as Wintergreen Dog Sled Lodge. So that was kind of my first introduction to living in a more remote wilderness community, working around animals such as these dogs, and guiding people on outdoor adventures. So that's kind of where the beginning came. And along the way, I met my wife. Her and I moved around a bit, and I was able to explore other avenues of guiding, such as being a raft guide in Colorado and in Idaho. We also lived in southern Arizona, where I guided hiking and mountain biking tours. But we always had our hearts moving back somewhere north where there was snow, and I certainly enjoy the mountains. And Montana kind of seemed to be that best, location for us to chase our dream of having our own dog sled tour business.
Yeah. Well, and tell us about why you chose Bigfork, which to me that is one of my favorite little towns in the world. I actually lived in Lakeside, Montana, for a while when I had moved back to Montana. I was born and raised here, but uh, spent most of my life living all around the world. And moved back here from Nashville, Tennessee, of all places, and lived on the lake and decided I'd try to retire, but I just didn't do well with retirement. I needed to do something, and I'd had a long background in broadcasting, so I thought, well, let's do that. But I just loved going over across the lake to Bigfork. It was just such a unique little village that had so many great things to do in the summer. And I think a lot of people that watch our show in Montana think of it as a summer village, but there's stuff going on in the wintertime too. And you guys being one of them with Basecamp Bigfork. So tell us about how you chose that and chose the name Basecamp Bigfork in that.
Yeah, Bigfork is certainly a special community. I think anybody that has had the privilege to come and visit Bigfork always really enjoys it. And yeah, certainly more known for the summer activities. I joke about how we kind of did it backwards. We came here with the winter business idea when lo and behold, the summer side of our business, that was, a lot more easy to pull off. But dog sledding is certainly a unique experience that draws people who are maybe visiting the greater Flathead Valley, whether they're coming up to Whitefish to do some skiing and things, or maybe they're seasonal residents or people who have family that's coming to visit and they're just looking for ways to entertain friends and family who maybe have not done any winter activities before. But yeah, we definitely did quite a bit of research prior to moving up here. We've been here for about 20 years now. And prior to that, we basically, searched whether through the internet, a lot had to do with affordability, which at the time, that was still the case. Unfortunately, that ship's kind of sailed,
Yeah.
but, but we got here at the right time. And like most people, I would say really any business, there's the side of it that is the hard work, the prior experiences in education or what have you. But a lot of it's just timing. And I think the timing for us when we came here, was right when, say, Montana had been doing a lot more to promote the state for tourism. social media was just starting to become a thing. And so our business has kind of evolved with some of that. All along the while, we've always kept it small. You know, it wasn't our intention to grow some huge, entity that was going to take over the landscape by any means. So we purposefully, kept it the way it is, which has always been kind of a one-man band, at least in the winter months. Me and my dogs. In the summertime, we have our shop where we do benefit from the beauty of Bigfork and Flathead Lake, in the Swan River. We rent kayaks, paddle boards, mountain bikes,
Yeah.
and we do lodging and things on our property as well. But always been a small family business. But yeah, we had prior to moving here though, we basically road tripped all throughout Northwest Montana, Northern Idaho, and Bigfork certainly stood out. We kind of call it our Minnesota with mountains, being that my wife and I have a lot of background from family and things and living in Minnesota. That's kind of where our roots are, so to speak. But yeah, here you do have that beautiful lake country, but in the background, these majestic mountains as well.
Yeah, it really is just a very special place, and you've grown the experience quite a bit too. When I look at your website and that, I mean, you got the whole family involved now, and kids and all, and that, and what I found unique when I was reading about your business is that it's more than just taking a ride on a dog sled, which is still pretty unusual. Not many people get a chance to do that. Even us folks that live in Montana, we don't. We've on this program reported a lot on dog sled races, which everyone's always found very interesting, but never where just the average person gets to have that experience. And in your case, you kind of do offer the ability to let someone kind of become a musher. Tell us a bit about that and how that has grown your business.
Well, yeah, that's how we've always done it actually. And I would say that is definitely what makes us unique in the dog sledding tour realms. Most commercial tour operators, I'd say, typically have a connection to dog sled racing. They also work with Alaskan Huskies, which are the racing style dogs, and they're used to running maybe bigger teams, maybe on more open trails, things like that. And again, with my connection to my uncle, who was this Arctic explorer and who built this world-class dog sled facility in northern Minnesota, I kind of got to learn from the best, and in a way that was more an approach, much more like you would say on an expedition, so for maybe getting a little more off the beat path, not knowing every day what the conditions might be. I do get out and do some trail work here and there as I can, but yeah, our trails aren't always, perfectly manicured. I say it's not your Disney World dog sled adventure. It's definitely the real deal. And
Yeah.
so every trip starts out with the opportunity for people to meet our dogs. A lot of interaction there. We've got some amazing dogs, and they're all quite friendly. And so it's really fun to see people build relationships with them throughout the time we spend together. We also give people a chance to learn what it takes to mush. So we do certainly have some instruction that we give them prior to just, turning them loose. And I'm certainly there along for the entire journey. And probably another part that is, I don't know, really outside of my uncle's business and mine, where as a guide, we actually do that on cross-country skis.
Wow.
So I'm on my skis all day long, cruising along, and I can either assist with the sled for those that might need it, and certainly at the beginning of the journey. I like to tell folks that dog sledding doesn't ease you into the day. The dogs start out with their most enthusiasm and energy and excitement at the beginning, which is unfortunately when people are kind of learning the ropes. And somewhere along the way, it does balance out. But it's a little bit of organized chaos to begin. But that's all part of the fun. And again, with me on my skis, I can assist with the sled. And then at a certain point, as people get more comfortable being the musher, then I'm skiing out in front and giving the dogs something to chase so that they can, keep running at a nice fast pace. So I get worked about as hard as the dogs do.
So you folks that are listening to this and watching it, and you're going to see a lot of pictures and some things like that too. So you'll get a good feel for what the experience is like. But you got to try this. This just looks so great. Tell us about your dogs. What kind of dogs do you use, and what was that like in training them to be more than just, a team pulling a professional musher, where they kind of have to, I suppose, kind of teach people a little bit themselves, huh?
Yeah, I think for the dogs, they're just excited to go.
Mhm.
They want to run. They're large, high energy dogs. So much like most working dogs, they want a purpose, and they feel satisfied when they've had a good day's work. And so with our dogs, getting a chance for people to meet them at the beginning, we don't chain our dogs up. They live in these open pens, and yeah, as far as the type of dogs that we work with, they're called Inuit dogs, which are quite rare. You won't really find them outside of communities in northern Canada, and certainly even then, that's few and far between. There's still certainly communities where you have native people that are living traditional subsistent lifestyles, whether that's in Greenland or northeastern Arctic Canada, where they still utilize the Inuit dog, which is the dog that they've had for thousands of years. Um, Probably one of the most interesting things is that they're the oldest breed of dog on the planet. And
Really?
a lot of that's been recently determined through DNA studies. So they are the original sled dog. And not only did they help to create an entire culture of people living in the Arctic, but they also are the type of dog that would bring explorers to both the North and South poles for the first times in history, which took place in the early 1900s. And so that was Inuit dogs that had a role in that. But again, they're very few and far between. Most people have never heard of them before because they've never been popularized for pet purposes or outside of the working arena that they're known for. So they've kind of been unchanged for all this time. And much like a lab likes to fetch, these dogs like to pull. So that it's just very inherent in their, DNA and their, mental wiring that they just want to go.
Well,
Um,
and I've got some up on the screen right now. You may not be able to see them, but I've got them up on the screen for our viewers, and they do look a little different than I imagine what people would think of as huskies. They kind of have that husky look a little bit to them, but your dogs are in all different colors, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, they do have a variety of colors and markings, and a lot of that just depended upon where in the Arctic certain bloodlines came from. Um, there's thoughts that maybe it depends on what type of diet those dogs were, say, evolving off of, whether it was more inland people with
Oh,
land mammals
yeah.
that were being fed, or more coastal people where sea mammals were the diet. But Inuit dogs, another thing, and I talk about them as a breed because that's how we distinguish different types of dogs from one another. But breeds are something that humans have created, where we very intentionally have bred certain dogs for certain jobs, certain looks, certain
Sure.
characteristics. But the human element is why certain dogs are the way they are. Whereas an Inuit dog is actually known as a land race, and a land race is where you have a domesticated animal, but rather than being a product of human design, they're very much a product of their environment. So they are an Arctic animal, much like any other. They're very adapted to uh, the Arctic landscape and the climate, and they certainly have evolved hunting Arctic animals, and that's basically what the native people of the North used them for throughout thousands of years, is to use them to travel looking for seal, caribou, musk oxen, and even hunting polar bear in communities.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting, the history behind these dogs and what they're all about. Um, so where did you find these dogs? I mean, they're quite rare then. How did you start getting your own team together?
Well, so yeah, the beginning of it all, and again, some of these fortunate things that have been in my life, where I've had folks who have been involved with these dogs, and maybe they've had a change of lifestyle, maybe a move or what have you, where they could no longer keep those dogs, and they want to see them go to a working home. They want to hopefully see them stay together as the unit that they were if they were a working team. And so my very first dogs I actually got from a couple in Northern Ontario. And so I had a long road trip out to pick them
Yeah.
up. But along the way, I was able to stop at my uncle's in Northern Minnesota and also picked up a couple puppies from him. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And um, from there, though, it would seem like ever so many years, I'd get an email or a phone call from somebody who was needing to relocate their dogs. And so I've been a place to take in Inuit dogs. I mentioned my uncle, the same type of dogs that he works with, and we're both kind of known, I would say, in the loose kind of knit Inuit dog community of people that exists. That if there's somebody who's needing to place a dog, they either reach out to my uncle or myself. And so, yeah, we've been very fortunate to get dogs through those different avenues. And we've also had litters of dogs. Actually, this summer was our fourth litter that we've had. And I'm not in the business of breeding dogs to sell, or
Right.
I really haven't really had to buy dogs through the years. Again, just fortunate nature of this community of people involved with Inuit dogs. Uh, you're not really wanting to create a market for them. It's not a dog for everybody. They can be very friendly, but they are just a high energy dog that needs work to kind of fulfill its life. And not to say it can't work for some folks, but at the same time, it more often than not it doesn't. And
Yeah.
and so with that, to have a home like ours where they have a job and have a purpose and get to kind of live a destiny, maybe different than what they did in the Arctic, but at
Yeah.
the same time, a similar sort of lifestyle, a working lifestyle.
Well, we're going to take just a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about these dogs. I guess the way I kind of describe them is they're just custom made by God for the for this specific thing. They
Yeah, they are
really,
very much nature and perfection.
yeah, they really are. And I had a limited experience with sled dogs up in Alaska and learned a bit about them. Uh, but I want you to talk a bit about the character of these dogs because it's really interesting. They really, truly love what they do. So we'll talk about
Absolutely.
that when we come back right after this. I want to take a minute to thank Superior Hardwoods of Montana for their support of this podcast. It is what allows us to bring you the latest from Montana's great outdoors, with very few interruptions, by the way. That said, there is another reason we are lucky to have Superior Hardwoods of Montana on board. They are an amazing business that can offer all of you some of the most incredible wood products you have ever seen. Plus, Superior Hardwoods of Montana is still a place that actually cares about and appreciates their customers, the same way we appreciate you, our viewers and listeners. They offer you something original and totally unique, like their 11 acres of wood wall paneling, flooring, trim, beams, slabs, well, you name it. Every single piece has a story behind it. Wood from old barns, historic homesteads, even historic factories. And that amazing wood can be part of your story too. Right there in your home can be a piece of American history, brought back to life, custom milled and refinished to your specifications. So it not only tells its original story, but also speaks to who you are and how special your home is. Superior Hardwoods also has exotic woods, live edge slabs, pre-finished and unfinished flooring too, all in stock and ready to go. Need help picking out the right material? Just ask. Their team has been doing this since 1977. They know how to guide you through the woods. Swing into their beautiful showroom at 5120 Highway 93 South in Missoula, or you can just check them out online at superior-hardwoods.com. That's Superior Hardwoods of Montana, local, knowledgeable, family run, and ready to help you build something that lasts. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see him. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and I am with Mark Schurke. He is with Basecamp Bigfork, and Mark and I are talking about his incredible business, which is, and we're going to get into what the experience is like here in a second. But I just want to stay on the topic of these dogs, these Inuit dogs. I think some people think in their heads, "Oh, well, you're forcing them to do this." No, this is what they live for. How is it that they're like that so much? Where, I mean, they truly can't wait to get out and pull the sled, right?
Yeah, they just want to get. I think whether they're pulling something or not, they don't really care. They just want to go. So
Yeah.
we're just harnessing that power certainly, and enjoying a perspective to watch them. It's quite amazing to see what they can do out there, and the beauty of the dog, seeing something, the athleticism is what it is.
Yes,
And
yes,
seeing an animal that, it'd be like going on a safari or something. And when you watch, these wild animals do these things, and again, these are domesticated dogs, but they have been bred for this purpose for thousands of years. And the Arctic is a pretty unforgiving landscape. So truly only the most, superior genetics were able to kind of say, continue on. And,
right.
the native people of the North didn't really have, a need for dogs that just look cute. And, it just happens to be that these dogs look amazing. They very much are fun to watch, and the energy that they have for what they do, the enthusiasm, it's, you can't deny when you see these dogs howling and getting excited and, jumping in their harnesses and wanting to go. And that's part of the excitement that I think is the highlight for people that come on our tours, is just seeing that and seeing these dogs and watching their athleticism.
So let's talk a bit about that as far as what people experience. Maybe take us through what an average day is like when somebody books a trip with you to go experience this, because it really is a kind of a multifaceted experience.
Sure.
Maybe talk a bit about how they get to know the dogs and what that day is like.
Yeah, well, most folks, it starts with a phone call, and we live in a day and age where technology is so become common for how people book vacations and so on and
Sure.
so forth, and activities, and I'm a little old school in that way, where the same guy who answers the phone, which is me, is the
Mhm.
same guy who's taking care of these dogs every day and year round, and is the same person who's actually guiding the tours. And so they're not just getting this from a person who just joined me yesterday, or has never done this before. It's straight from the horse's mouth, And
Yeah.
so with that, they arrive at our property. We're just 3 miles from downtown Bigfork, and while we're close to town, we definitely have a property that you feel like you're out in the wilds of the Swan Valley. And if we don't have snow here at our property, then we actually will transport our dogs and our guests, as I had to do today, because it has been a milder winter
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
this year. But that's how all winters begin. We transport our dogs and guests, and we operate off of permits with the Forest Service here in the Flathead National Forest, and take people to some pretty amazing places with our dogs. And again, our trails right here at our property are just a great mix. You'll find that you're not just on a groomed trail. You're going through the forest. Some of it more of like a single track style trail, where you're ducking branches and going over logs, and even through creeks and marshes, and up and over beaver dams and things like that. So it's a good variety. But every trip starts out with the opportunity again to meet our dogs. I always enjoy sharing the story about them, because again, for most folks, they don't know that story, and they typically just think of them as huskies, the generic kind of term for a northern dog. But there's a lot more to the story, and so we talk a bit about that. And while we're doing that, I'm letting dogs out. They're running around. They're jumping up and giving people hugs, and
Ah,
just a fun thing to kind of enjoy. I call it sled dog therapy. Just being around all these
yeah.
happy, loving dogs. And from there, then we take a moment. I have a sled set up where I give people a little demonstration as to what it takes to mush. We talk about the different parts of the sled, the different commands they might need to use, where we all kind of fit into the picture. And then from there, we get the dogs harnessed up, and let another couple dogs out, put a couple dogs back. Once they're all harnessed, we then hook them up to the team, and then that's kind of the moment where we're about to launch the ship. So things get a little loud and crazy, and it's once you release the hounds and the sled flies through the snow is when the excitement begins. So
About how fast do they go? I mean, these dogs can move right along, of course, depending on the terrain and territory,
yes,
but yeah.
yeah, very much depending on the terrain and the snowpack and that, but they all start out with a good sprint, about as fast as any, larger working breed would be able to run. And, maybe like 13 miles per hour in my case, where it's just a matter of how long they sustain those speeds. So they always start with a bang, they just launch out of there like a rocket. And then throughout the journey, they'll kind of settle into a gait or a pace, and maybe they get to a point where they need a short break. And then when you start again, they take off like a rocket. So I kind of compare it to a
Mhm.
slinky. You boing, and then you slow down and you stop, and then boing,
Yeah.
off you go. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
so they enjoy little moments to rest. It's a good chance for people to give the dog some thanks and praise. Good chance to get some photos with them and all that as well. But yeah, as far as the conditions, I always kind of relate it to friction and gravity. So, if you're going uphill versus downhill, that's going to affect your speed. So even in the middle of the journey, if we start bombing down a hill, you can really get cooking about as fast as one would want to go on a dog sled.
Yeah.
And then as far as friction, that would be whether we have real deep snow, or maybe real dry snow, or maybe real slushy snow. Those things all kind of slow you down, versus when things get really icy. Typically in March, when we get the freeze and thaw cycles, that's when things start getting real fast. And by the end of winter, the dogs are at their peak conditioning and fitness levels. We unfortunately start out our dog sled season with the holiday busyness of it all and the rush of
Yeah.
people. And the dogs are kind of easing into the season in December, and then by January, they're kind of hitting a good stride, and then by March, they're just amazing machines.
Tip top shape. Yeah, I suppose. Um, so what do these dogs eat to have that kind of energy and
Well,
sustained energy like that?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, part of the dog's longevity and their working abilities has a lot to do with genetics. And again, with
Mhm.
these dogs, that's a big part of why they are as fit as they are and live long, productive, hardworking lives. But yeah, diet is another part of it. They obviously get a lot of good exercise, but to keep them, working at their optimal performance, you do have to feed them well. And so they do
Sure.
get a higher quality dog food, and they eat a kibble. That's what they get every day, but it just has a higher fat and protein content, better ingredients than maybe what you might find, off the grocery store shelf kind of thing. But at the same time, I do feed them meat, and they do get that mostly in the winter months, because they're burning more calories just existing
Sure.
outdoors in the colder weather. And so
Mhm.
that varies through the years, kind of depends on what suppliers have that. And thankfully, there's quite a few mushers in this northwest part of the state who are kind enough to work together to get meat trucks to
Oh,
come
okay.
and ship large shipment, like a semi truck full of meat. And we all meet up to then disperse that meat to everybody. And so it's kind of a fun little gathering of the mushers of Montana. The one
Oh,
time a
that's
year I
cool.
usually get around these folks because I don't do any dog sled racing, so that's my opportunity to kind of network. And yeah, you load your truck full of frozen meat and bring it home, and it takes a lot of chest freezers to store it all, and you really hope that the power never goes out for too long. So
Yeah. Well, I'll bet you they get pretty excited when it comes around to getting their meat and
yes.
getting ready to go. Um, so, how long can, how many years can a dog do this kind of work before they might be, say, too old to be able to pull a sled anymore?
Sure. Well, yeah, it probably depends on where they exist. And thankfully in
Mhm.
Montana, our climate is pretty mild, both
Yeah,
winters and summers. I mean, while we can get some extreme cold, we don't get it for sustained amount of times compared to, say, the Arctic or even northern Minnesota. And then same in the summertime, our low humidity, we don't have all the biting insects and things that are gonna maybe be harder on dogs that live in places where those extremes exist. Which certainly even further north, you can have much more of that hardship. So
sure.
our dogs got it pretty made in the shade, and I keep a small kennel. Currently only have 15 dogs, so for a commercial tour operator, we're as small as it gets, to be honest. But it's my ability then to give the dogs the lifestyle that I feel they deserve, so, the
Mhm.
attention to their needs, whether health is involved, things like that, or injuries, things of that nature. The more dogs you have, the more expense that becomes, and the more you spread yourself out.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I'd like to oversee it myself. So, they're my working dogs, but they're not necessarily pets, but they're certainly not just snowmobiles with fur either. They're very much
Right.
a part of the family. Um,
Sure.
and with our dogs, again, getting the good exercise, good food, and having good genetics, it's not uncommon for them to live these long, healthy working lives. And I often say that they live about a year within their, or they'll work within about a year of their lifespan. So if a
Oh,
dog were to say pass away at 13, it might have been working even up till 12,
wow.
or take a year kind of thing.
Well, that's
So
a
they,
pretty long life for a dog that size, for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. But again, I would imagine in more extreme climates, the dogs, when they used to use Inuit dogs in Antarctica, they might only live to be like 8 years old because the environment is so extreme there that the dogs, as they get older, just, fail to thrive, I would imagine. So,
Mhm.
and you can kind of see that in the older dogs. It's a fascinating thing working with a primitive animal such as this. And as the seasons change for an older dog, for example, if they're at the later part of their life and we're coming into winter and the cold's coming again, you can kind of tell that they're, I would imagine, much like wild animals, where it's like, okay, here's a winter. Do I want to endure this? Or you can kind of see
Mhm.
where they're, accepting their lifespan. And same as coming into a summer, um, do they want to be in a time of year where things are warmer and such and so on. So you kind of see their aging throughout their life, and
Sure.
their personalities so well, you can see those changes. But mainly with the older dogs, they lose the ability to run as fast as the younger dogs. So they got the knowledge, they got the wisdom,
Yeah.
but they might not have the speed. But
Uh-huh.
what's nice is when we get some deeper snow, they're as good as it gets. They pull just as hard as the rest of them. It's when we have those faster days that they might get those days off, and I run the younger dogs, but they're all part of the pack. I don't, that we keep our dogs, and the older dogs maybe get to see some greater privileges later in life as
Sure.
far as
Yeah.
kind of being the sled dog with benefits, if you will.
There you go. Um, what are some of the things that people say after they've had this experience with you? As far as your customers or clients, what are some of the things that they say? I imagine this is quite an experience. I mean, it's very much like what it would be out in the Arctic. What do they say to you?
Yeah, it's always interesting because I get people that are coming here from all over the planet, really. Cer- Certainly all over the U.S. and certainly from all spectrums of lifestyles and income levels and what have you, or even outdoor pursuits. For some people, this is very much the most extreme thing they've ever done, or people who've never been around snow before. I kind of joke about how there's kind of three factors that make up the ideal participant on our dog sled tours, and it's kind of the three factors being that one, it's ideal if they like dogs, certainly big dogs, and
Sure.
they
Yeah.
high energy dogs. The other would be that they enjoy winter and just the beauty of a winter landscape and being out in the snow and in the cold. And that's not everybody's cup of tea, but
Yeah.
there's something about being on a dog sled that you're not focused on the discomforts of winter, and you're just kind of, it's a sensory thing, so you're feeling all that's going on at once. And then the third would be that for folks who are maybe more active, not that you have to be some rock star super athlete to do our tours by any means. Certainly the more active one is, the more fun they may have, and
Sure.
or at least somehow in that triangle of those components. And if they're all
Mhm.
three, if they love dogs, they love winter, and they're active, then they're definitely, it's an easier day for me. But yeah, usually one of those elements is going to make a highlight for everybody on our tours. So, but I would say for most folks, it's something they've never done before. So that's a fun thing about guiding dog sledding. It's introducing people to a different world, and I mean, even today I had a dog sled tour, and just winter in general, every day is different. The landscape's always changing. The snow, the way the light hits the snow, depending on how cold it is and how that kind of plays into the feelings of it all. And if we get, I know you were doing some shows on ice fishing. We do a lot on frozen lakes, and some people have never been on a frozen lake before, and you go ripping across, and you feel like you're in the Arctic or something. And
Yeah.
so there's all those kind of things going on, and so yeah, I would say most people are pretty blown away by it all. The dogs, the landscape. Yeah, certainly the landscape is pretty easy on the eyes. We're very fortunate to operate in in my mind, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And so yeah, the mountain views, the forests. I mean, it's as good as it gets, to be honest, as far as dog sledding terrain. And yeah, the dogs are the highlight of the show. And I do my best to just kind of um, deliver an experience that, again, for me being the one guiding every tour, I have the ability to try to, I can read people in a sense that like, okay,
Yeah.
they might not be as adventurous. Let's tone it down a little bit. Or, hey, they really like to learn more about the natural world out here, what trees these are, and, pointing out animal tracks and things like that. So it's a nature experience for sure. So, and helping people to better appreciate the outdoor world that we live in here.
Yeah, for those of you, even some of you seasoned outdoor folks that do this, you're gonna experience the outdoors in a way you probably never experienced it, and it allows them, I would assume, to really get a different experience and a really up close personal experience, because they see how your dogs interact with that environment, but then you're there to point out some interesting parts of the environment they're in. So I imagine that gives them a lot to talk about when they're done for the day. How long does a typical trip last?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's varied through the years. Again, this is our 17th season actually operating here in Bigfork. And so we tweak our offerings a little through the years, but uh, currently the trips that we do primarily would be our half day and full day tours. And the half day tours run about 2.5 hours,
Okay.
depending on location and conditions and things.
Mhm.
And then the full day tour is usually about 5 to 6 hours. And for me, I try to keep track of the time, certainly, and at the same time, I try to make sure that every trip people are getting the experience that, whether it runs over a little bit or not, it's like I want them going home knowing that they just had, they got their money's worth, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and got to experience something so unique like that. And then, of course, most all of us have our cell phones and that, so they're getting great pictures and video and all that. So that's a memory they're going to have that they'll likely never forget. We're going to take one last break here, and when we come back, we'll kind of wrap it up with any other kind of things that you might want to share with us that people should know. One of the things I wanted to find out about was just how good a shape we should be in and what we should bring with us to experience this as comfortably as we can. So we'll cover those things right after this. Are you going to get out to your favorite ice fishing hole this year? Yeah, I know. Finding the time is always the hard part, isn't it? Well, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can help you get the things done that you have to do so you have time to do the things you want to do. How about clearing the driveway or work areas of snow? Yeah, that can be a time sucker for sure. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has just what you need. A huge selection of Boss snowplows and accessories that'll fit any truck or ATV even. Boss snowplows are flat amazing at removing snow fast. Or how about something that can serve you at both work and on your next adventure outdoors? Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has awesome Diamond C utility trailers and accessories that can haul work equipment during the week, and then your ATV or snowmobile or other awesome outdoor toys on the weekend. Of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer also has an amazing service department with top technicians and parts pros that are ready to fix or replace whatever you need, from installing a new fifth wheel or gooseneck hitch, or even rewiring the lights on your trailer so they work the way they're supposed to. What about getting some other time-saving accessories for your truck installed? That, my friends, is for sure one of their specialties. And get this, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can even help with financing. Yeah, they've got you covered. This is going to be a great winter season, my friends, especially if you go see Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula at 5680 Expressway. You can call them at 406-549-4243. Or check them out online at rmtte.com. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, rmtte.com. Get a hold of them today and then start planning that trip. back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. And Mark Schurke is my guest. He is with us talking about Basecamp Bigfork and these dog sledding adventures that he offers. Really amazing experiences with some of the most unique dogs you're ever going to meet, too. So do we need to be in a certain kind of shape to be able to do this?
Yeah, it certainly helps. I'd say winter in general, even just getting around in the snow, wearing heavy clothes, heavy boots, things like that.
Mhm.
Icy surfaces, that can all be a challenge just walking through the parking lot. So, um, it's great when folks are able to, be a little bit nimble on their feet. And along with that, even just being around the dogs, and having the balance when a dog bumps into you.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, um, as far as though the fitness level of folks, really for anybody who enjoys at least some level of outdoor physical activity, whether that's going for hikes or riding a bicycle, kayaking, things like that, where they find joy in being active. For somebody who is expecting it just to be like I had mentioned, the Disney World, roller coaster ride, or a snowmobile
Yeah.
where you can just throttle to go faster and things. It might not be for them, or maybe more inclined that they do a dog sled ride, which are options that exist out there too. And even with our tours, while people are mushing, they're not both mushing at the same time. So one person is a passenger, the other one is the musher. And some days we get it where people very much split that 50-50. They want to trade off and on the whole time. But other days, you might have where one person is just happy to be the passenger and the other one's more than thrilled to be the musher. And so, yeah, and maybe that's in a situation where it's a parent and a child, or
Yeah.
a married couple, or whatever it might be. But where one might be more adventurous than the other, but the other just wants to be along and enjoy. And but it's nice when folks at least can be able to, maybe help out with the dogs, which doesn't involve too much. But there's times when we stop along the way and just getting up off that sled to go up and give the dog some praise, and just to stay warm at times. On cold days,
Yeah.
you have to be active to stay warm.
Sure.
And so for folks that are more able to do that, then again, it's less of a work for me, less of a liability.
When they first call you, you're going to brief them on what to expect and all that. So, people find out if this is the right thing for them. But really, and looking at the pictures of different people that have been out with you, I mean, it kind of spans about all ages almost, doesn't it?
Absolutely, no doubt. The whole age spectrum, basically. And along with that, even, when we talked about fitness, even in levels of fitness, because sometimes
Mhm.
it's not, sometimes it's just the conditions that we have that day. There's days where it doesn't matter maybe how much somebody weighs or how able they are to help with the sled. If it's icy, we're going fast no matter what. And,
Yeah.
and as I mentioned before, it's a lot about the gravity of things. So, just like riding a bicycle, you get to an uphill, you gotta work for it. So you're
Mhm.
maybe helping the dogs. You can picture the classic kind of skateboard kick as you're on a dog sled, and
Yeah, yeah.
maybe even hopping off and running a few feet. And so I like to tell, I would say that most people don't realize how active dog sledding is. And no matter what fitness level they are, they're, I think, always impressed by the athleticism that it does take at times. But at the same time, I say, I'm not here to beat you up, but you're
Yeah.
gonna feel like you've done something at the end of the day. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Um, what does one say to a dog to get them to go? I mean, do your dogs just know what they're doing and where to go, or as a new musher, do you have to know certain commands you give the dogs, or what is that like?
yeah, we go over a good bit of that during the introduction. I try
Mhm.
not to, you know, overwhelm people and so on. And so
Yeah.
usually it's just getting the dogs to start and getting them to stop are two
Okay.
commands that hopefully people can utilize for me. And it does make a difference if they're saying it. Some people might be apprehensive about, yelling out the commands. Um, and different mushers might use different commands. They're somewhat universal, but to get the dogs to go, we use the hup command. So it's just a
Hup.
nice loud hup. Yep, HUP. And it's more about how you say it. So And also before we typically say that, if we're starting from a stop position, we'll let the dogs know the time has come. So, ready dogs, ready, nice upbeat, positive tone. And then hup, 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 we're excited as they are. We want to go. Um, and then to get the dogs to stop, it's simply saying whoa. And most people can remember that one.
Sure.
But it's
Okay.
about how they say it. You want to use a deep authoritative voice and whoa dogs, it's not a whoa please. It's you want to mean business.
You gotta let
Um,
them know. Yeah.
and then with the turns, with my tours, the dogs often they kind of know the routes that we often run. We do use the turn commands, and I do explain them to people, but again, I don't expect them to remember. In the heat of the moment, they might get them backwards anyway.
Mm.
So with that, G is right, Ha is left. Those are pretty traditional for most of the
Yeehaw.
people
Okay.
around.
Yeah.
And then again, with me cross country skiing, I'm either in the back helping to make sure it's running smooth, and I can give those commands from the back and with the people if they want to do it themselves, or I'm skiing out in front of the dogs, and then they're just chasing after me as it goes. So yeah, it's a
Sure.
little different. I would imagine for people who run much bigger teams or are more competitive mushers doing races, they probably spend a lot more time training their dogs with those commands.
Hmm.
Where my dogs maybe learn it through their lifetime, they might be teaching them, in a smaller period of time.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Anything else you want to share with us about this experience, and why people might want to give this a try?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for folks who are wanting to try something different, something maybe they've never done before, or even if they have, uh, I would confidently say they've probably never done it in the way that we offer it.
Right.
And yeah, if you're wanting to experience not only just some beautiful winter landscapes, but certainly these dogs that we've been talking about here today, to learn more about them, to learn about Montana, to let me, share with you, firsthand what brings me so much joy, and hopefully some of that rubs off on those. And as far as when they're coming to Montana in wintertime, uh, there's only so many things one can do in the winter,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's very gear specific. So if you're not a skier, a snowboarder, if you don't have all the equipment to ice fish, if you don't have your own cross country skis and things of that nature, this is a great way to maybe connect with winter, and also know that there's a lot of places and people out there that do share those other experiences as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's also, if you've got the whole family, and maybe the kids are all into skiing up in Whitefish, but some not everybody in the family skis, and some people say, well, now what do I do? Do I just sit in the lodge and wait? Well, here's something else for them to try and do.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That's a good point. We've had groups like ski groups even come from different states, and or maybe they don't want to ski every single day, things like that.
right,
But
yeah,
also when it comes to say families, it's an experience where everybody gets to have the experience they're looking for. And it's not like an experience where you take your kids and you have to tone it down to a level of the kids, or where the kids think they're too cool to go do what mom and dad want to do. It's
yeah,
something that I would say really speaks to all ages. Although we do have some age limits there, but at the same
sure,
time, with that, you know, it, I joke about how there's no egos in dog sledding, at least in the realms that I offer it, because there's not the gear. People don't have to worry about what they're wearing and what they're doing. It's just they all show up. If they're here with positive attitude, ready to have fun, they're gonna have fun.
yeah. Well, and that's what it's all about, is experiencing everything that Montana has to offer. And here's yet another way to do something really incredible in Montana. If you don't get out in Montana, and we've had so many people move to Montana here, especially over the last few years. And I always tell people, if you've moved here and you aren't into some kind of winter activity, it's a pretty damn long winter for you. Whereas if you get into doing some of these things, you're going to have such a much better time, and just great memories to share I mean, this is one of those experiences you're probably never going to forget ever, because it is so unique. So, I really hope people will take some time. What's the best way to get a hold of you if people want to book a trip?
Yeah, our website is a great place to start. It has our, phone number, email on there. That phone number is the number that I answer, so you'll talk to me directly. And if I don't answer, leave a message, and I'm good about responding promptly, and happy to answer any questions or concerns. Different years through all the time we've been doing this, we do tend to book out fairly far in advance, and that's just
Mhm.
the nature of the fact that there's only a few of us throughout the state that really do this. And I only can do as many trips as I have dogs. And again, I mentioned I purposely keep this smaller kennel, but yeah, for those that are looking for a real hands-on dog set experience and delivered in a way that is the owner operator business kind of model,
Yeah.
they call me. I'm the guy that answers. I'm the guy that takes them out. So.
Mhm. So I would imagine then folks, if they're wanting to do it this winter, they better get a hold of you right away. Do you have any openings left this winter? Or
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah,
okay.
we definitely have plenty of opportunities for people to get on the schedule here this winter. Um, yeah, this year in particular, I think travel, things every year is a little different. The economy
Sure.
gets different years, or
Mhm.
airlines, whatever it might be. But the COVID thing really brought a lot of people to Montana. We were booking
Oh,
out
yeah.
really like a year in advance during those times. But now we're back to more what I like, where it's maybe up in advance. So.
Okay. And as far as helping, you can help with lodging and all that as well, right?
Yeah, we actually have lodging on our property. So for folks that are needing a place to stay, we've got a gorgeous lodge. All the details are on our website there. Great rates, and we also have cross country skis and snowshoes that folks can use that are staying at the lodge, as well as a wood burning barrel sauna. And
Nice.
then in the summer months, we also do a yurt. We don't operate that in the winter, but the
Mhm.
lodge, yeah, we're again just 3 miles from downtown Bigfork. It's right on our property. You get to meet the dogs if you'd like, and obviously utilize the trails that are right here from the kennel.
Mhm. How many people does the lodge hold?
It sleeps 6 people.
6 people, okay. So that might be something you folks wanna consider too, because when you're staying in Big Fork, there's a lot to do, some great restaurants and all that stuff, so
With the lodge itself, people can book it though as a couple. We have options. They don't need to
okay,
necessarily book the whole thing.
okay.
We don't overlap groups. They get the whole place themselves, but it's basically set up in a way where they could book one side or the other, and there's a full kitchen, and again, endless trails, and we get some amazing wildlife right here at our place. And yeah, like you mentioned, yeah, Big Fork's got a lot to offer. We're not far from Whitefish, for those that are looking to ski and snowboard.
Mhm.
Uh, Far from Glacier National Park for people who want to get out and explore Glacier in the wintertime as well. And Big Fork sits on the north end of the Swan Valley, so we've got an endless backyard to explore when it comes to what we do. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, when you're talking about, Glacier, I think a lot of people don't realize Glacier is open in the winter. Now granted, limited a bit, but still, I mean, there's still incredible things to see really all over around where you're at. But I imagine, a person could just hang at your place at the lodge and probably still have a heck of a lot of fun. Like you say, there's all the nature you'd ever want to see right there too. So,
Absolutely, yeah, it's a very cozy place.
well, folks, I hope that you'll give this a try. We've got the uh, number and website and all that on the screen, but also if you go to the podcast description, the links for the website for Basecamp Bigfork and all that are right there. So you can just click and boom, you're right where you need to go, as well as the email and phone numbers there in the podcast description. So if you're on YouTube, you'll see that just below where the video is. If you're on Spotify, it's pretty much about the same as YouTube, as well as then for those of you that are audio listeners, the that's there too. Plus, on our website, montanooutdoor.com, for this week that the podcast is out, um, we have an article about this experience and all that. So you can click that too and get more info. So a lot of different ways to learn about this, but I hope you'll do it and meet these dogs and get an experience that you're never going to forget. Anything else you wanted to say before we go, Mark?
Oh, no, just that it's been a pleasure talking with you, Dale. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I love sharing what I do, and hopefully folks out there listening to this will come and give us a visit here in Montana.
Yeah, and one of these days, I'll get a camera and get up there, and we'll head out with the dogs one of these days with you.
Look forward to it. No, you absolutely should.
That would be fun. We'll do a podcast on the snow with the dogs. You can meet them up close that way too. So we'll have to try that one of these days. Yeah, I'd love doing it. Okay. All right, my friend. Well, we'll be in touch soon. And again, all that contact information is right there in the podcast description, and you can get it and do this. Just trust me, do this. You're going to enjoy it, and it will be something that you're never going to forget. Especially if you have someone that maybe, let's say this Christmas, you could tell that gift wasn't quite what they wanted. Give them this. They'll never forget it. They'll love it. All right, Mark, you take care and say hi to the dogs for us.
Will do. Take care. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Thanks for watching the Montana Outdoor Podcast. There's no way we could do this podcast without the incredible support of sponsors like Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock, high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And of course, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss snowplows and accessories, and Diamond Sea Trailers and accessories. Go see them on the web at rmtte.com. We'd love to hear what you thought of this week's podcast. When you get a minute or two, shoot us an email and tell us your thoughts. Same goes if you have any questions for Rigger or this week's guest. Just send your questions or comments to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com. Hey, don't forget we should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, gang, we hope to see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.